Yo, 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 yo. So we just set up our factor, which is a ratio of moving averages, and we chucked it in the pipeline, and the pipeline spits out the calculation. Now what we need to do is test that factor. What do we mean? I think we're testing whether it's correlated with some kind of success in the market, so like return. So if your factor is positive, does that correlate with positive return? When it's negative, does it correlate with losses? If it does, then it means maybe it tells you something useful you can trade on. And we do that using ALPHAlens. So the first thing we have, we're importing a built-in factor returns. We're using a window length of 2. The confusing thing is that isn't a return over 2 days, it's a return over 1 day. And the reason for that is to calculate any return, you need 2 values. So yesterday's and today's price. Split the difference of those and divide by the original price, and then you've got your return. We run the pipeline to get that return data. We import all our ALPHAlens stuff and pandas again. Always put ALPHAlens on your CV, guys. We're doing this backshift returns, and that's in ALPHAlens utils. ALPHAlens utilities, so that function's undocumented. I just had to take some time to watch some pandas videos and YouTube videos I could find that might indicate what's going on. So what we were doing is looking at the backshift returns series and trying to understand what it does. So then I found the ALPHAlens source code on GitHub. I'm having a look at the backshift returns series. The bit I'm interested in, I think, is the dates. So this command here is trimming off some dates off the end of the series. Output date labels will contain all but the last end dates. And that's another issue. How can an array have a minus index? Well, the way pandas work is -1 will be the last element in the array, and -2 will be the second last. So we're passing 2 into this function. So what I did was I took that source code for utils and I pasted it into my notebook so I could have a look at it. And I replaced the input arguments, series and n. Wrote a bit of code that just sets that to match the same thing that we've got going on. So what I want to do is run through this again, just up to there. Got my coffee as well, so our productivity is going to be insane. Printing my stuff. All right, there's too much printing here. Let's compare dates to new dates. Oh no, this is going to be in the wrong format. The proper way to write a date is day, month, year. The old dates went up to the 1st of February, and now they only go up to the 30th, so we have actually lost 2 days here. So the clue, I think, is here. The following code loads 1 day trailing returns, shifts them and formats the data, and in the comment it says they're shifted the forward return. So a forward return is the return I'm going to get if I invest today. The trailing return is, if I had invested yesterday, what will I now be banking? So yesterday I invested £10. Today it's worth £11, so my trailing return is 10%. Whereas if I was doing a forward return yesterday, when I have £10, I would say my forward return is going to be 10%. So the forward return, I think, is kind of unrealistic because you know the future. But I think for the purposes of evaluating whether your factor has any correlation with returns going forward, it's more convenient to have the data in the forward return format. Now, what I would have thought is the data would only need to be shifted 1 day back in that case to do that change. But you can see in this source code, well, specifically here, they're doing a 2-day shift for the shifted returns. Yeah, which is hard for me to make sense of. Is it because this returns is calculated over the last 2 days, not today and yesterday? That would be weird, wouldn't it? I mean, there's not a lot here, is there? Should we try and find it in the Quantopian world? The GitHub. It's the pipeline, it's the factor. So you get your close price from somewhere. So these factor things have to provide a validate and a compute, but somewhere else the pipeline thingy will call this the last element of the array minus the first divided by the first, so it's a return over. In our case, 1 day, there's just 2 values in close, so this is essentially close 1 minus close 0 over close 0. how does pipeline pass close into this? I feel like this is too complicated. What about the documentation again? I just need to know a bit more about the window. I just want to know if it includes the current day or is it the last 2 days. I think that would explain the need to shift 2 along. It's saying the highest high in the last 10 days and the lowest low. So I think it's excluding today in a sense. Let's ask on the forum. I have 2 questions that have no replies, so I'm not very popular. But if there's one piece of advice I can give you is, when you're not popular, just keep doing what you're doing until people accept it. Does window length include the current day close price? Just slap everything in the title to really put people off. So that's very spicy. So now what we're saying is, these returns are for the last 2 days, but they're being slapped on today's date. So then to get forward returns, we need to move them back 2 days. So if you move it back once, it's then on the correct date. And if you move it back twice, it becomes a forward return. That makes sense. Yeah, I find it a little opaque. I mean, should we be looking at GitHub on like a getting started guide? I don't know. Maybe you should be. All right, so now we understand not particularly well merge the factor and returns data. So yep, I got COVID, lads. I got the trots. Yeah, so you create a data frame and you put in the shifted returns on the dates that you have the factor data for. We do that. I don't know why it's called AL. What does AL mean? AL returns. What could that possibly mean? Aluminium?
Uh-oh, retard alert!
Algo. AL returns. ALPHAlens. It's data for ALPHAlens. So ALPHAlens wants data frames. That's probably why we're putting it in a data frame. And this stuff here is the multi-indexing things. Okay, so let's look at this AL returns. This stuff creates this thing where you have a single date, but then on that row for date, you have all these equities. So you don't have the date repeating like a million times. And now we stick the factor data, the returns, into get clean factor. Now, is this going to be documented? I don't like it when there's a lot of text. You know, I don't really want to be reading. Formats the factor data, forward return data, and group mappings into a data frame that contains aligned multi-index indices of timestamp and asset. It takes in quantiles. What is a quantile? Probably should know this. You just look at Wikipedia. You don't need to memorize things anymore. So as I was saying before, the area under the curve is what people care about. So this area is 25%, this area is 25%, this area is 25%, and this area is 25%. So yeah, there are your quantiles. So it's just going to tell you what quantile it's in. I'm guessing from 0 to 4 or 1 to 5. So there we have it. That's the data we can pipe into the ALPHAlens. Now, because this was way more complicated than I thought, we'll do the next bit later. All we do in the next bit is create a lot of data, create a lot of charts. It's just going to take a while to figure out what all these charts mean. It's quite a lot to go through there. Happy Tuesday.